Welcome back to the channel. So, rumor mill swirling. It's going to be some guys not retained, right? So, let me go ahead and just jump ahead of this, right? Everyone else is putting out their mock board of who they feel that we should be targeting as an offensive coordinator going into next year. Obviously, at this particular point, you can make some excuses for Coach Gaddis. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think when you're making that type of money that you're making, I think you have to almost look at it from something that I heard that Urban Meyer said to his assistant coaches one time, where he said that I'm not going to allow for you as a coach to tell me that a player is not able to learn his assignment and play, and I'm paraphrasing it, but play it well enough, efficiently enough. So obviously we do have some injuries that have taken a toll, but honestly, man, like I said in my last video, it is just so easy to score touchdowns in college football. So to go 9 quarters without scoring a touchdown, yes, that falls at the feet of the players, but also at the same time, it has to fall at the feet of the offensive coordinator. It just is what it is, right? So I got 4 candidates. Like the thumbnail says, real production, real results. Not somebody that you may have called the plays and you may have been the orchestrator of said offense. None of that. We're cutting straight to the chase. These 4 guys have done it, have been successful at it, and I feel like that based on the styles that they have, 2 of them have styles that I feel like will actually mess with what Coach Cristobal wants to do. But then I think 2 other guys have the potential to really take the top off the offense. So regardless if either one of these 4 particular guys are hired, then I think we will be in good hands. Now I'm going to try to go in order from guys who I feel like have experienced the most success down. But obviously all guys have experienced a level of success. So that's why they're on the list, right? So we're going to start off with Dan Mullen. Now, he may be weird, may be quirky, but the guy knows offense, right? I've always felt that the 2 best, the best play calling in college football to me has always been Lane Kiffin. But I think the consecutive years that Coach Mullen put together the University of Florida, where he goes from a all-world passing attack and couldn't run the ball, and to come back the following year and realize that, hey, I don't have that same talent in the quarterback room, so what we're going to do is we're going to establish a dominant run game. And they went out there and they did that. And so to me, that really just shot him up my ladder as a guy that can call plays. Obviously, the height of his play calling prowess would obviously be at the University of Florida as the offensive coordinator under Urban Meyer, in which they were able to win 2 national championships. Now, what's unique and interesting about that is that he was dealing with 2 different quarterbacks. Obviously, you got Chris Leak, who was more of the passer, the guy who was going to be scary accurate, and then you were incorporating a new kind of hybrid, kind of being revolutionary by bringing in Tim Tebow. Not a guy who's Michael Vick by any stretch of the imagination, but basically a fullback who can come in and do things. Basically invented the jump pass. So plays that are still being used today. The work that he and Urban Meyer did at the University of Florida, you still stopping you and you say, hey, we have a player that we've recruited. We may want to put him in that Percy Harvin role. So again, you have to take your hat off to a Dan Mullen for having the mindset, and I'm sure Urban weighed in some, but obviously, again, we cannot take away credit from Dan Mullen for realizing I have a very, very special talent, and I don't feel like that I just need to waste him running routes. I need the ball in his hands, and Percy Harvin was very successful, right? Very successful, right? So that's kind of what that is. So moving on, Cliff Kingsbury, right? Current head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. I do feel like that if Cliff Kingsbury is released by the Arizona Cardinals, I do feel like he's going to command absolute top dollar. I wouldn't be surprised if the bidders for him. It could range from 3 to 3.5. Like, he literally could make money that certain head coaches at the Power 5 level are making, based on what I think he can do. So with Mario Cristobal be willing to make such a commitment for a guy who, realistically speaking, the ideologies of offense don't necessarily mesh, but I do feel like, as I said at the beginning of the video, he's one of those guys that I think that can take the offense to the next level. I feel like Dan Mullen can do that as well, but I think from a certain style, I think Cliff Kingsbury may have somewhat of an edge. Obviously, we were introduced to Cliff Kingsbury via Johnny Manziel when they came in and shocked the world and upset the University of Alabama, and really set off or ticked off Nick Saban, where it was like, okay, I'm going to start getting me some good quarterbacks now. We're going to start getting better wide receivers now, right? And so, we see how that story goes. So obviously, after his tenure at Texas A&M, he goes and gets the head coaching job at Texas Tech, where he goes and coaches Patrick Mahomes, right? And obviously, we know what Mahomes did at Texas Tech, but we're just somewhat amazed at what Patrick Mahomes is doing in the NFL. Now, obviously, I can't give all of that credit to Cliff Kingsbury when we realize that Andy Reid is, he could maybe be the modern day Bill Walsh. I don't know. But obviously, gets fired. Was going to take the SC offensive coordinator gig, but the Arizona Cardinals had different plans. Said, hey, we want to bring you in, and we want to draft Kyler Murray. We feel like that we want to take this leap, right? And so far, it hasn't worked. Now, what I will say in his defense, it has not been the issue of the offense at any of his locations, right? So it's kind of like how some people say certain guys are just better off being coordinators. And I think that's what Cliff Kingsbury ultimately will be better at doing. But like I said, this is going to be top dollar if he does hit the market. The Joe Brady sweepstakes was insane, but Joe Brady does not have the production and the results that Cliff Kingsbury has. And as Fat Joe said, yesterday's price is not today's price. So whatever you felt that you could have offered Joe Brady to come to college football, you may have to double that to get Cliff Kingsbury. And like I said, I don't know if Mario will be willing to want to make that type of commitment to a guy who, again, from an ideology standpoint, they don't necessarily match up. So, moving on. Tom Herman. Obviously, another guy that worked alongside Urban Meyer, was able to help lead the University of Ohio. I'm not going to call them the Ohio State, the University of Ohio, of Columbus. We're able to lead them to a 2014 national championship run. Now, I think from a standpoint, obviously, he and Dan Mullen are similar, right? And obviously, that could be just the way that Urban Meyer likes his offense to be ran. Strong running game, big offensive line, be able to have some guys on the outside, some athletes on the outside, you can throw the ball down the field. Now, obviously, I have no issue with an offense like that. I like a nice run game, but I don't like a run game that takes away from the ability, especially when you have a good quarterback. So, again, with the advent of what we have in Jacory at quarterback, I do think either that's Herman, or Dan Mullen have shown and displayed that they have the prowess to actually coach up a quarterback like that and not necessarily need a guy who has to be pinpoint accurate, because, again, he worked with 12 gauge. I'm not going to say he was the most accurate quarterback, but he was able to make him serviceable throughout that playoff run. And then lastly, Graham Harrell, right? So obviously Graham Harrell is a candidate for the obvious reason, the air raid offense, right? Points and bunches, fast-paced, warp speed type offense. And I feel like, even though I said I want to put this list in terms of guys with the most success, but I'm also putting this in kind of the line of who I feel like will be most likely for Coach Cristobal. And I think Graham Harrell would actually be the absolute last of my potential candidates that I think we should hire Again, just for the simple fact of the type of offense that he runs. But again, like I said, at the same time, we are in a slump right now, and I think this is kind of setting up to how Manny Diaz was his first year. He hired Dan Enos and wanted a particular type of system. And Manny, for whatever reason, did not want to necessarily double down and bring Enos back, because essentially the type of slump that we're seeing now, we saw the same type of slump with Dan Enos. And Manny made the hire that was somewhat in the opposite direction by bringing in Red Lashley. So the absolute different direction hire for Coach Cristobal would be getting a guy like Graham Harrell. Currently working in West Virginia. Honestly, looking at the way things are going, probably would command the least amount of money. But again, like I said, I can't necessarily put on what a guy feel that his mindset, his knowledge is actually worth. But it would be interesting. But always, again, it's the best thing is about making sure that the guy that comes in is a fit. Not just from a coaching staff perspective, but also from a cultural perspective. And I think, obviously, again, that's why Dan Mullen ranks so high for me, because Dan Mullen has worked in the state of Florida. Dan Mullen has worked out west in Utah. Dan Mullen has worked someone in the Middle East while working with Urban Meyer at Bowling Green. So obviously, in my opinion, Dan Mullen would be the absolute best candidate to hire, because he fits what it is that Mario wants to do. But also, he has enough, I feel like, cachet to let Mario know that, listen, look, let me handle this, right? Let me handle this. You go out there, you get me players. And I think that's what made him and Urban work so well together, that I don't think Urban interfered with what Dan wanted to do, because Urban's job was, listen, I'm going to get you as much talent as possible, and you make this work. And that's exactly what happened. So I feel like maybe he and Coach Cristobal could have a similar relationship like that. Now, obviously, I'm sure Coach Mullen will be itching to be back as a head coach. So obviously, if it's a situation where, and then also another thing, he has his own offensive line coach that he wants to bring in. So that could be somewhat of a conflict of interest, because you have a situation where Coach Mario wants to keep Alex Mirabel in. So in my opinion, I think that would be the only holdup in not actually bringing in Dan Mullen, is because Dan Mullen has a right-hand guy that he wants to bring in, and obviously Coach Cristobal has his right-hand man. So I think Dan Mullen would be the best, followed by Cliff Kingsbury, Tom Herman, and then Graham Harrell. So drop a comment down. What do you think? Do you like these particular 4 candidates, or do you feel like there's someone else, or do you have your own 4? So as always, like, share, comment, and it's always about the you, baby.